Hey, everybody, and welcome to Connection Wednesday with Dr. V. So, the topic that I wanted to discuss with you all today is creating a safe space for literacy development. So, when you think about literacy, and through my experience that I've had, one of the things that you have to do as an educator or anyone is develop and gain a child's trust. And one of the things that I actually do in the beginning of the school year is, I have a morning meeting early on in the beginning of the year, and one of the things that I like to do is I like to go around and I like to ask students about what some of their strengths and weaknesses are in particular subject areas. And so, in order to develop that trust, one of the things that I do is I actually start with my own um, story. And so I talk to the students about my struggles that I had in reading. So even though that my parents read to me every night or had every opportunity to do so, I still had some struggles comprehending uh, the material that my parents would have read to me. And so that was challenging for me. And so one of the things that I also tell them too is that, was, when I moved to a new district, I was actually tested. And so when I was tested, they told my mom back in the day, the term was I was mildly retarded. That was the diagnosis that they told my mom. And so the thing that I appreciate the most is that um, my mom never told me. And so the way that I found out was that um, when I was teaching in Philadelphia, one of the things that I always like to do is I actually like to have my mom come in and speak to my students, especially to talk about what her career was. My mom was a physician. And so one year, she came in and she was talking about, oh, I remember when we moved into the district and we had you tested, and they sat there and they told me that they diagnosed you as being mildly retarded. I was like, huh? What? When did that all happen? And she was like, oh, I didn't tell you? I was like, no, you didn't tell me. She's like, well, I know I didn't tell you when you were younger because I didn't believe it, but I thought that I told you when you were older. I was like, no. I was like, this is the first time I heard it. But, I was glad that she didn't tell me that, because I know from experience how some kids may feel being diagnosed with having a disability. And sometimes we like to use that disability as a crutch. Um, and so when I reflect back on when that all transpired and happened, I was like, wow, that's why I struggled so much during my subjects, especially reading and comprehending. I was like, wow. But when I share that story with my students, it opens that door for them to talk to me about some of the struggles that they had with literacy. Because usually when some kids talk, there's a reason why they may not like a particular subject, whether it's math, whether it's reading. A lot of times they may tell you and share with you probably an experience that they had, and that's why they don't really like it or they don't get it. And so, one of my stories that I actually like to share is that, one of my students talked to me about a reason why they found reading to be challenging or they struggled. And their experience that they shared with me was the fact that the teacher used to always call on students and have them read out loud. And this student wasn't really comfortable with reading out in front of everybody. So when that actually happened, the student felt embarrassed because when they were reading and they said a word incorrectly, the kids all kind of laughed at him, and that kind of he felt embarrassed. He said, he stopped wanting to read out loud in front of everybody. And I can relate to that because there are some kids in my class where when you're setting up rules and setting things up, some kids will sit there and actually they'll do that. They'll laugh if somebody says something incorrectly. And so one of the things that I do to correct that is, and I tell my students, is that we encourage, we don't discourage. That's a big saying that I say. If you were to ask some of my students, they will tell you that Dr. V always says that we encourage, we don't discourage. And so when another student hears about a fellow peer of theirs struggle that they had with reading, it opens up the floodgates. And so that's how I, in the beginning of the year, develop trust in my students, which is creating that safe space so that they are able to talk about some of the challenges that they had with literacy. And so that in that beginning of the year, I can develop that trust to help support that child so that would help him or her in their reading development. So this is Connection Wednesday. I'm glad that I wanted to share this information with you. If you have any comments, just leave a comment if you'd like to. So this is Dr. V signing out.